Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And throughout the month of October, I've been doing a theme called Spooky Season Suggestions, where I've been taking some of the requests I've gotten throughout the year for horror movies and finally doing reviews for them. So today's viewer request was for the 1984 film Night of the Comet. Here is your trivia question for today. Who is DMK? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in the film Night of the Comet, everyone is gathered outside at night to watch a comet as it flies by. Unfortunately, this does not end up being a joyous occasion, as the comet turns almost everyone into red dust. Now, there are in fact some survivors, two of which are a pair of sisters, Regina and Samantha. Now, being either a survivor or red dust is not the only option, as apparently some people were also turned into zombie like creatures. So now these two sisters are trying to exist and potentially find fun where they can in this post apocalyptic world. They do end up making friends with another survivor named Hector, and apparently there's even a group of scientists out there that are aware of them that may potentially be able to take them to a safe place. So, will our survivors and these scientists be able to figure out some way of saving those who are still changing into these creatures? So, the original title for this film was not Night of the Comet, but was in fact Teenage Comet Zombies. There's even a small reference towards that, as this is what Samantha says over the radio station. This movie was written and directed by Tom Eberhardt. While writing the script for this film, Eberhardt would actually ask random teenagers for their input on what they would do to survive at the end of the world. Catherine Mary Stewart plays the character of Regina Belmont, and what's interesting is she did most of her own stunts, other than riding the motorcycle throughout Los Angeles. Kelly Maroney plays the character of Samantha Belmont. She also kept one of two cheerleader outfits from this film. Another actress that was also up for the role of Samantha was Heather Langenkamp. Also, in the original script, Samantha does in fact pass away and doesn't come back later. Robert Beltran plays the character of Hector Gomez. There's a moment in this film which is amusing years later when you look back at this, but when Hector first appears, Samantha says right before so, "Beam me up, Scotty." And what's funny is, Beltran, who played Hector, would go on to play the character Chakotay in Star Trek Voyager. Sharon Farrell plays the character of Doris, and in the scene where Doris slaps Samantha, Kelly Maroney actually did tell Sharon Farrell to really let her have it so that she could react correctly. Here's some interesting information about the two child actors that played Brian and Sarah. Brian is played by Chance Boyer, who is actually Sharon Farrell's real son who played Doris. Sarah, on the other hand, was played by Janice Kouay, and this would be one of Kouay's only live action roles, as she would heavily get into voice acting. In fact, you probably know her best as the character of Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Here's a cameo you may have never noticed in this film, but in the crowd scene on the microphone is LL Cool J. There are a few nods to other films in this movie. For instance, on the door to the movie theater right before Larry gets dragged off is a poster for the movie Red Dust from 1932. This, of course, is even funnier due to the fact that people turn into red dust in this film. Also, speaking of that, the way that they represented the destroyed humans and creatures was by using brick dust. Another movie that gets referenced by a poster at the movie theater is Death Race 2000 from 1975. They may have put that reference in due to the fact that Mary Warnov, who plays Audrey White in this film, also appeared in that movie. There's one more movie reference when Regina and Larry spend the night at the movie theater. The movie that's playing is Night of the Living Dead from 1968. The arcade cabinet that Regina is playing is the Atari game Tempest. When Regina and Samantha are dancing in the mall, you can hear the song Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. But did you know that this was not Cyndi Lauper singing this? They actually got a lesser known artist to sing it to save money. The waving clown in downtown Los Angeles is the same clown that Pee Wee Herman locks his bike to in Pee Wee's Big Adventure. The think tank scene was done with miniatures and force perspective. The radio station set was built in an abandoned warehouse. All of the outdoor scenes where you see an empty Los Angeles were filmed in the morning on a normal business day, but shots were done quickly as they would briefly stop traffic for moments at a time. As you've probably figured out, this entire movie was filmed in California. Joss Whedon has stated that this film was a big influence for both the movie and television versions of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In 2018, there was some discussion of making a remake, but nothing has come of that. This is one of those movies that I think could either do really well or really poorly as a remake. So, when it comes to the film Night of the Comet, this is absolutely one of those movies that I consider an 80s classic, especially when it comes to horror films. So I like the story for this film, and I also enjoy the characters. I do wish we would have gotten to know them maybe a little bit better, or if there had been just a little bit more character development, but it is still a really fun movie to watch. I also like the little bit of a twist that they have near the end of the movie. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. And if you enjoyed this one, other movies I recommend checking out are Night of the Creeps, The Return of the Living Dead, Zombieland, and Maximum Overdrive. And now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. Who is DMK? So there are technically two answers for this question, but both are absolutely correct. So, firstly, of course, those are the initials of the person that Regina is trying to beat the score of on the arcade machine. Secondly, you have the person who shows up right near the end of the film, Danny Mason Keener, with the license plate of DMK. Now, of course, it's not actually stated that that's the same person from the arcade machine, but Tom Eberhart, the director, says it is. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if there's any other movies that you'd like to see get a review, just mention them in the comments.